This is Toledo Symphony Lab, a behind-the-scenes look at the world of classical music from WGTE Public Media and your Toledo Symphony. I'm Brad Cresswell. A little bit later on, we're going to check in with the Toledo Symphony's music director, Alain Trudel. He'll be calling in. But joining me today, right now in the studio, are the TSO's president and CEO, Zach Vassar, and principal second violin and artistic administrator, Merwin Sue. Now, we also have a special return guest. That would be Mickey Emch. Welcome, Mickey. Glad to have you back. Last time you were here, it was, like our Thanksgiving Handel's Messiah show? Yes. Is that right?
Yep, doing a little dinner prep plans.
Yeah. So how did that turn out for you? How were the holidays?
It was great. We got to sing a great show, and then I learned about vegan Thanksgiving. It was fantastic.
Vegan Thanksgiving. Those two words seem like they should not go together, I guess. Unless you're a vegan, of course. There's nothing wrong with that. But what was the mainstay then? If you didn't have turkey, what'd you have?
It was really beautiful stuffed squash with a bunch of, there were different grains involved that I don't usually have, I don't know.
Okay.
Lentils and quinoa.
Yeah. Well,
lovely things.
That makes everybody shaking their head, yes, except for Zach.
No, I'm over here thinking that doesn't sound Turkish at all.
Yeah, I agree, definitely. Well, the reason that Mickey is here is for a very specific reason. You are the vocal soloist for this Sunday's chamber music program. It's happening at the Toledo Club, the Juliet Letters, and we're going to hear Mickey singing selections from Elvis Costello's Juliet Letters. That's with string quartet. There's also a little ditty by Beethoven and a brass trio by Elizabeth Raum on the concert. And we're going to get to all of that. But first, I have a quiz.
Oh my gosh,
for
so
you all.
early.
Yeah. This is actually replacing the story. So Mickey told us her story last time. What we're doing right now...
Do we get to listen to it in chipmunk high speed and criticize it like
no,
you did to
Megan Amos?
That's right.
Yeah. No, we're going straight for the jugular with this one.
Awesome.
I'm not even giving you choices. We have to see if you remember... Yes, Zach, you have your hand raised.
Yeah, I know it's not easy to do that on the radio, but does this mean that we'll have a second quiz in the normal quiz slot if quiz 1 is meant to be the story slot?
Yes, indeed.
Okay. All right. Yeah! Oh, no, I do not agree with that cheering crowd. Stand down, gentlemen.
Let's move on.
All right.
So this is a Mickey story quiz. I'm going to ask you questions about Mickey's story. And they could be questions just about Mickey, right? Now, Mickey, you can't answer these since you probably know the answers.
She can't handle the truth.
But let me bring up your music that we had last time. Okay, your story music.
So this should theoretically help us creating
it's a mnemonic bridge.
Exactly.
Yeah, something like that. Exactly.
To remind you of the Lifetime movie of my life.
Okay. So I'm going to go through all of these. Well, actually...
Let's answer
them.
them.
I'm going to go through all... You want to answer them as we go along?
Because you're not giving us choices, right?
All right. Number 1. What state is Mickey from? Anybody know?
Missouri.
Missouri is...
That sounds right.
Correct. Very good. Merwin, we're off to a good start. Okay, true or false?
False.
Worked... You're right, Zach.
Wait.
It actually was false. Would you like to hear the clue? Okay, Mickey works with the Choral Arts Alliance of Louisiana. That is false. She worked with the Columbia Choral Alliance of Missouri. Went to the University of Missouri. Also went to Louisiana State University. So the answer is false. So it's 1 each. 1 for Merwin, 1 for Zach. Okay, what school did Mickey
McGill.
study at for her doctorate in contemporary music?
BG.
What school?
Bowling Green, yeah.
Okay, I'm going to give it to you both. Bowling Green State University. Now, this is a little bit harder. It gets a little harder now. What instrument did Mickey play before she was a singer?
Oh.
Well, she played a kazoo. I remember seeing a picture of that.
That is true.
That is true. See? I got it from the
Technically.
horse's mouth.
Okay, this is an instrument that she kept leaving at school, and her mother suggested she become a singer instead.
I think she left her piano. She left her violin.
All right, Zach, that's correct. Only took a few guesses to get there.
I think I was still correct on kazoo, but
I feel like those were
we'll
like...
agree to disagree.
I still
foul
play the
balls,
kazoo,
right?
though.
I know you do.
Yeah, but
your mom didn't take it away from you.
No.
But you're ahead, Zach, by 1.
Oh, no, this is uncomfortable.
So no complaints.
I'm
right?
not complaining.
Her high school voice teacher, Mickey's high school voice teacher, also had a lot of what at home?
Patience.
Would that be as in you're willing to wait, or as in you're
if
a
it's Mickey's
doctor?
teacher, I feel like... You know,
Okay.
yeah.
How about cats? I'm going to go with cats.
Very close.
Dogs.
Zach is ahead by 2. That's amazing. Lots of dogs.
I love that unfiltered reaction there.
Do you know what kind of dogs they were?
I believe they were poodles.
No.
They were Shih Tzus.
No.
They were Pomeranian cannonballs.
No, we don't have time for all of this. They were Lhasa Apsos.
Close with Shih Tzu.
That was my next guess.
Yeah, what was Mickey's first job in high school?
Oh,
Training Lhasa Apsos.
That was her mother.
That's true.
Training her mother. Sorry, I got it wrong.
It's okay, you're 2 ahead. You're still going to be ahead no matter what Merwin says.
I'll go with newspaper delivery.
No, she was you want me to tell you?
Sure.
Go
Yeah.
for it.
She was a florist.
That was your first?
I was an
Oh, yeah.
assistant. I filled
I
the
remember
water
this.
tubes and I did all the things.
Assistant florist.
I did know you were in the floral arts.
Yeah, a long time.
Isn't that a floral arts building at BG too?
Yeah, I think so. It's right next to...
Clots.
Yep.
Yes, okay. The School of Floral Arts. And finally, where did Mickey famously intern as a production assistant?
Right here.
In that chair right there where you're sitting? In front of the mic?
That's it.
Yes,
That's it,
exactly. At WGTE. Well, I am very happy to report that the winner of our quiz is Zach.
Pigs are flying, and I think the transmitter is going to go out any second.
Yeah, I think it's happened before that
Once.
you've won a
Absolutely.
quiz.
Has.
Yeah, maybe twice. I really do say that I think Paula Poundstone has won Wait, Don't Tell Me about as many times as I've won her quiz.
She's been in this very room, as a matter of fact. So
Failing at a quiz, I bet, right? Yeah.
So the concert is happening on Sunday. It's January 29th, 7 p.m. at the Toledo Club. Music of Beethoven and Raum and Elvis Costello, which Mickey is singing in. Let's talk about the Juliet Letters. This is a studio album. It came out in the early 90s with the Brodsky String Quartet. What precipitated Mickey singing it? What precipitated it being included on the program? Who wants to take the lead here?
Well, it actually started because we were programming a Masterworks concert that opened our season that also featured Romeo and Juliet. And occasionally, because we do have, people on our chamber series who love to attend the Masterworks and vice versa, that sometimes it's interesting to kind of shine another type of light on a similar topic. And so we were thinking about doing a Romeo and Juliet themed chamber concert pretty early in the process. And this particular song cycle is really something that I've been enamored with since, I don't know, my teenage years. It was something I've loved, and it's really great because, for shorthand reasons, we say this is Elvis Costello's Juliet Letters, but he really wrote this as this collaborative process, and in a weird way, it's much closer to how rock bands write songs together. Maybe one person is the main lyricist for a particular song, or one person brings the main theme, but everybody is putting together their ideas. And so there's something that felt very, it feels very heterogeneous, as opposed to it's not just the work of one mind. You hear all of these different influences and different styles, and the texts are just crazy different. And it's so much fun, and it's something that kind of tests a different part of your artistic mind, because it's not just, we need to get into the head of one person or one artist. And I'm sure you would probably can expand on that a little bit.
Mickey, tell us first, the conceit of the Juliet Letters and what it's about, and this text that Merwin mentioned.
Absolutely. So, as Merwin said, it's collaborative in how it was conceived. Not all of the text is by one person, but it was initially inspired from seeing a newspaper clipping, right? That the professor in Verona had received letters or found letters that were addressed to Juliet, and it is nice in the sense of many song cycles of the 20th and 19th century that have, oscillating perspectives, but can still speak to this idea of disillusionment from different folks' perspectives, and really intimate, gorgeous pieces.
Yeah.
Can I ask a clarifying question? Because I'm not clear if that Verona professor, are these reported letters to a real Juliet or to a fictional Juliet inspired by the play? Because I know that that's what Elvis Costello and the Brodsky folks created, but what was the source that they were responding to? Were they like old letters or are they new letters?
That the folks were responding to, or like the actual lyrics of this piece?
Oh, I know that the lyrics for this piece came from Elvis Costello and the Brodsky members, right?
Yeah.
But what was the previous iteration? Were they?
I just knew that there was a newspaper clipping, and they said, "Oh, isn't that a fun concept?"
It is the fact that like people still to this day were writing to Juliet.
Gotcha.
In the
All
same way that maybe people write to Santa Claus.
I see.
Like they're so
Does Juliet bring presents?
certainly
from the
not in
pharmacy.
this.
Not the kind that you want in your stocking.
Drink this, little boy.
So, but like the conceit, I guess, of this, the kind of thematic backbone of it is like, imagine if you were opening Juliet's mailbox.
Yep.
What are the things that could be in that mailbox today?
Yeah.
And has this been going on for a long time? Like, have people been writing letters to Juliet since Shakespeare's time, or is this a more modern concept?
I think the newspaper clipping they were responding to was kind of marveling at the fact that this was still going on, but I don't know exactly when this first started. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So it's like, I'm not sure if this is something that's been going on since the 16, 17, 1800s, but I know that it's still going on. And so it was not just like, oh, this particular day there were some letters. It was treated like an ongoing phenomenon.
Yeah.
So
Wouldn't you love to be the postmaster in Verona and have to like divide, here's
two
the
piles,
stack.
one for Santa, one for Juliet.
Well,
right?
don't forget Romeo. He has far fewer.
Romeo.
Yeah.
Wherefore art thou
Exactly.
Romeo?
Yeah, can't find a return address.
Yeah, he can't get mail.
Well, when I was a kid, I used to think Juliet was saying, "Where are you? Where the heck are
more
you?
like why,
I'm
right?
waiting." It's why are you Romeo?
Yeah.
Wherefore?
Yeah.
Yeah, the things you learn on this podcast.
The more you know.
Yes. Mickey, talk a little bit about the music, because you have a sort of a pedigree in modern music and music composed in the 20th and 21st centuries. Can folks who, enjoy Beethoven, which is also on this program, also enjoy the Juliet Letters?
Of course. Yeah, absolutely. I think that there is something, as Merwin was saying, idiomatic about the collaborative writing. But if you like Folkslied, you'll love Elvis Costello,
Folkslied. we
Anything
should let
Brahmsy.
people know. Yeah.
Yes.
Right. Those German song cycles. Right.
I would say that the music is more eclectic than a typical song cycle would be. I think that there's certain pieces that sound a little bit like Shostakovich slow movements. There's pieces that very much remind me of middle Beatles, era stuff. Then there's pieces that there's quick waltzes. There's patter songs almost that feel like Gilbert and Sullivan.
Yeah, from a art song perspective too, or just any kind of Kurt Weill and my favorite bits about the like irreverent Poulenc songs. Anything that has a little grit and can lend itself to different scales of stages too.
Yeah. What was the most challenging aspect for you learning these roles, learning these the letters?
I think it is easy for folks, especially when you've been in teaching spaces, to decide what crossover vocal style needs to be, and something that is and has been described as just music to be it is a collaborative space. It's not necessarily musical theater. It's not necessarily in an operatic space. To come to something and remove all of your previous notions of what one should sound like, and to just be conversational with the players too, because so much of it is back and forth with the strings. It's really fun.
Are you playing in this one?
I am,
Merwin?
yeah.
So what's been your experience? I mean, it's unusual that you have like, a pop rock artist, even somebody who kind of blurs the boundaries, working with a string quartet, because that's like one of the most challenging, really, forms of musical expression there are. What's the experience for you playing the music? Have you discovered anything? Were you... Yeah.
One thing that I really enjoy about this particular this cycle and this collaboration is how willing they are to, like, and I'm including the Brodsky Quartet along with Elvis Costello as kind of like the co-creators of this, how willing they are to kind of find unusual combinations and make them kind of exist together. So there's a lot of times where I'll be playing a line exactly in the same register as Mickey, and we're having to really decide, okay, am I going to try to fit into this, or am I going to kind of put this little kind of metal core through that that voice? And how you play it almost creates a new instrument that's like, like 2/3 voice and 1/3 strings, like, and then they're very willing to explore register differences. So the viola plays a lot of things that are very much violin range, very high, just to create those special effects. There's these really interestingly notated siren sort of effects that are really fun and tricky to try to do. And so I think that they decided to really, it's such an open-minded piece, and so I can imagine that the writing of this was incredibly fun, and just like, let's try this. There's so much, there's so many things that are only the result of people being really willing to try something different, and so I'm really enjoying it.
Wow, it sounds really interesting.
Yeah.
We're talking about the upcoming chamber concert from the Toledo Symphony. It's happening this Sunday at 7 p.m. at the Toledo Club, music of Beethoven, also Elizabeth Raum. We're going to talk to Alain Trudel about her when he calls in. And we've been talking about the Juliet Letters, which will be performed by soprano Mickey Emch with the Toledo Symphony String Quartet, including Merwin Siu, right here with me. Music of Elvis Costello and other collaborators as well.
Absolutely, yeah.
Let's talk a little bit about the content of these letters, because you talk about Santa Claus letters, and I'm thinking I would love to like open all those and read them, right? All the Juliet letters, I'd love to open and read and see what people are saying to her. Are these like different people writing, or is it all one person writing? How does it work? How is it put together?
So every letter is in a different character from different perspectives, and not necessarily while they're to Juliet. Like the first, I think that we'll do is between a wife and suspecting her husband of cheating, right? So there's this intimate. Different perspectives, different ages, different levels of mental stability. So, as one would expect from Shakespeare.
We're not talking about the people in this room. I want to hear about the Juliet Letters.
Thanks, Brad.
I wasn't even pointing at you. Go ahead.
No, but in the a lot of these, though, there is this. I recall seeing disillusionment as a main theme across the board, from speaking directly to someone you love, often in either sardonic or hopeless spaces, but it's so charming, and it's so beautifully written and comfortably communicative among us and with the audience. It's a really gorgeous collection, and I think that it's fun for us too to get to curate from this. I mean, the full studio album is an hour and like 30 minutes, so we've
You're doing
curated,
selections.
yeah, we've curated a lot of these, and it's really...
What was left on the cutting room floor? I just want to know. Were they things that didn't fit a concert performance? Were they things that just didn't sizzle the way you wanted?
They didn't, yeah.
I do think that when you're talking about something that was written for Elvis Costello, who has an extraordinarily distinctive voice that kind of sits in funny places.
That's a fair point, because Mickey is singing the lines that Elvis otherwise would have sung.
Yes. Yeah. So I think that some of them we were just like, this sits funny. Right? And then I think one of the really interesting things about this collection is I talked about how in a weird way, it's like if you open the mailbox, pull a bunch of letters out, there's junk mail in this. There's solicitation letters.
Oh, I love it.
There's there is within this what Mickey totally is accurate about this general sense of disillusionment and personal vulnerability. There's also a lot of humor, and then there's some randomness to it, and we felt it was important to keep that mix. But I think that that's not necessarily something that has to be shot through the entire second half. So we did cut a couple more random-ish sort of
and adapting something that was initially studio album for stage in a way that one might with any general art song cycle. We're packaging them in a dramatic arc for the audience as well. I loved that we were able to kind of go through the list, and I think we had very similar feelings about which ones were favorites and which ones would be great for another time.
Yeah.
So there could be a sequel.
That's where the Romeo letters
That's right.
come
Yeah, the
from.
Romeo letters.
Romeo's Revenge. Right?
That's Romeo's Seance, actually. We are doing that one.
Oh, okay.
It's very fun.
Yeah.
I just think it's interesting that you take somebody from literature and a book that many read at an impressionable age, and Juliet becomes the hero or the heroine because she certainly didn't end up with the ending she was hoping for. And then you think about some of these themes of disillusion, and is she a unique hero for that?
Mm-hmm.
It's an interesting trope, for lack of a better word. But I'm curious, are there Shakespearean references, or is Shakespeare presence throughout this, or is Juliet kind of take on a life of her own, you think?
I definitely think that she takes on a life of her own. And I think a lot of this, the perspective that I tend to come at, the broader Juliet character, kind of to Zach's point, it's so nice to take yourself out of age and time and context to be able to have that intimacy of first love, and of that vulnerability in any form.
I'm curious, you mentioned the book and the popularity with young readers and young viewers, too. I remember back in the day watching the Zeffirelli film, right? Yeah. And all the students came in and watched that. And you think, here are teachers putting out this story to young minds. I mean, what does that say? Why do you think that is? Why has it got that appeal?
The protagonists are high school age. That's there's a lot of relationship there because of the age proximity. But I think it's also a gentle way to communicate the sense of tragedy. It's like it's a gateway drug to tragedy.
Excellent.
But there is something unique about it that it's if you're going to take somebody to the opera for the first time, Bohème would be a really good entry point. This feels like a really good entry point to Shakespeare.
Yeah.
In a way, the thing that's most fascinating to me about the Juliet letters is that Mickey isn't Juliet. I'm not Juliet. Diana Anderson, Reed Anderson, Bob Clemens, they're not Juliet. The audience is Juliet. They need to be, the letters are being addressed to Juliet, but Mickey is singing the letters to the audience. So the audience really, if there's, and maybe that's something we might want to kind of mention or something in a way, it's like if you really want to get the experience of kind of try to imagine what it would be like to be reading these letters as a fictional character, but a character for whom almost everybody has some sort of opinion. She's an extremely vivid character of her own, but she's also very much the victim of projection from other people.
And Mickey, you're playing kind of different characters as you read these different letters.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yeah.
I imagine that's a bit of a challenge.
It is, and it's because the music is so complementary to it's so illustrative, it's so playful that it's simple to slip into. You don't have to do too much extra labor for the audience to get those points across. The difference between some of the favorites, like older man who's contemplating suicide versus a chain letter offer that makes you think maybe the devil's involved. We don't know. It's just fun and playful. It's really stunning.
Now, you guys are doing this at the Toledo Club, which was the old venue. You've returned to it post-pandemic. How does the venue affect your presentation of a piece like this? Because it's more intimate, people can have a drink, they can relax. Can we talk a little bit about where it's going to be?
Absolutely. I think this is a really great venue for this sort of location because it's wonderful to be, as the audience is so critical in this, because being able to be kind of partially surrounded by that means that the connection is even stronger. And I think that there's a few little, like I mentioned the sirens, which is a good special effect that I don't need to spoil additional other ones. But it'll be great that we'll be playing these siren sorts of effects and you'll be able to see what we're doing because people will be so close to us. That's so great to be able to do all of that sort of thing. And it does have, even though it's certainly not necessarily like a kind of a Parisian cabaret sort of space, it does at least have the same sort of size and kind of being wrapped around that does help. I think so. I think it will very much lend itself to that experience.
And just to clarify, you're talking about sirens of the ambulance variety,
as
not
opposed to the
Greek.
mythological.
Yeah, exactly.
Not,
Thank you.
not the soprano.
Otherwise, I really misinterpreted that effect.
That's a different piece of literature.
That's right. But, there's something unique about this. We were talking about the audience gets to presume the role of Juliet. We have, I think, anytime we do songs in a chamber setting, it's really special. And you get to act, I'm looking at Mickey when I say this, sorry. You get to act these different personalities. You made, for some reason, as I was thinking about this concert, I kept going back. Do you guys know the recording that Susan Graham did of Ned Rorem songs?
Yeah.
Yes.
I kept thinking about that CD, which is such a lovely CD. It's probably 20 years old now at this point, but these little miniatures, and some are silly and some are deeply sentimental. And I kept going back to that as I was exploring the Juliet Letters, and you get to be so many different people. So I'm just looking at how your countenance changes and your posture changes with these different people. I can just imagine how you will sing them. I can't wait.
It's going to be really fun.
Yeah. Well, there's Alain Trudel. Let me see if he's online. Hello, Alain? Are you there? Hello.
Yes.
You're calling us from Canada, right?
Well, this week, yes, I am in Canada.
Indeed. Well, that's fortuitous because we're in the middle of the podcast right now. We're going to talk about a Canadian composer. Not you, by the way. This is Elizabeth Raum, who, as I understand, you know Elizabeth Raum, yeah?
Yes, absolutely. I've had the pleasure of playing her music in the past. And I know her, it's interesting, from her, of course, but her husband was a trombone player, and their daughter, who I know very well, Erica Raum, a concert violinist up in Canada.
All right.
And her husband, Richard, we've done a lot of projects together. I did a lot of research, and we did a movie together, a documentary, not a movie, that was called, get this, a very humble title, Trombone, the Voice of God.
I think I've seen that movie, actually. Is that on YouTube?
It's all over Tuba Me Room.
I love it. Alain, you have a couple other people on the phone here, so we're listening into your conversation with Brad. So You
Yeah.
got
Hi
Zach,
there.
Mickey,
Hi,
and
Zach.
Merwin.
Hello, hello.
Oh,
Yeah.
hello, everybody.
Hello.
So the piece by Elizabeth Raum, incidentally, I have that recording of the violin concerto that she wrote for, I don't know if she wrote it for her daughter or if it was just recorded by her daughter, Erica Raum, the violinist. But also there's a piece called Sherwood Forest. You know that? It's a horn concerto.
Yeah, very well. Yeah, I know that, and I remember when she was writing that, and before she wrote a tremendous tuba concerto. Actually, the tuba concerto might be one of the best tuba concertos out there, and that was around the time we did that I want to say movie, that documentary. Sorry, and I mean she's very prolific, and her piece for trombone and piano called Fantasy has been on every competition you do. It's one of the imposed piece that you have to do. It's very beautiful, very lyrical. Her style is very tonal, very lyrical. I would say if you try to find an equivalent in the States, especially with brass music, would be like in a different style, but maybe like a Wazen or somebody like that.
Yeah, Erica Wazen. So she wrote Relationships, that's the name of the trio, in 2013. There are 3 different movements, and the first one is called Two Against One, so I'm assuming that she's splitting up the instruments that way. The next one is Ménage à Trois, so I guess they're coming together. And the last one is Cronies, which basically happens to anybody over 50, right?
Well, I think it's really nice to be able to position Juliet Letters sort of concert near Valentine's Day. I think that so having this take on relationships, not all of which are in Romeo and Juliet, but to be able to kind of have a more wide-ranging take on relationships is especially appropriate for this time of year.
Yeah. Now, Elizabeth Raum is a Canadian composer. Merwin, did you put this program together, or Alain, or Canadian Mafia somehow make themselves heard?
It's a very polite mafia.
I stayed out of it.
Free healthcare. Yeah. So you stayed out of it, Alain.
It felt like a good fit to kind of be able to bridge the Beethoven and the Costello.
Yeah. Have you guys performed any of Elizabeth Raum's music in the past that you can remember?
I believe it's the first time that she's been on our series, but I can't be 100% sure.
Well, she has some great orchestral repertoire out there.
Yeah, we'd have to check. I feel like we've done something.
Oh, okay.
This isn't, but you would probably know more than me.
You look into the archives of TSO, but I assume, Alain, you've worked with her obviously, and you've done some of her music.
I worked with her, but I worked also did a piece for trombone and violin, a little duet that she wrote back in the day. But I worked a lot with Dick, with her husband. We were also at the Scotia Festival together, and talk about a clash of styles. She was there with her husband and of course daughter, and we all played together in the orchestra. And the guest music director for the festival, in the Scotia Festival that year, was Pierre Boulez.
Oh wow!
And but I mean, it was very. You cannot imagine two styles more different, of course. So it was quite interesting. I mean, it was all about Pierre Boulez's music when we were there, and also with the last concert we did. What did we do? We did Miraculous Mandarin, La Mer, and Le Sac. That was the concert.
Wow,
that's quite a concert. Well,
and we all got to play together. It was fun, but so they're more like colleagues. Sometimes we think of composers just as people who send us, the pages coming down of a big ivory tower kind of thing. But she's a very down-to-earth person, and she really, you can see that she writes for people, not just for instruments.
All right.
So that's although I don't know this piece, the particular piece, I'm sure it's written with 3 special performers in mind, probably some kind of a symposium of a brass, like horn, trombone, or trumpet, or something like that, and maybe some dear colleagues that she has. So there's always somebody in mind, and so it's crafted in a way that each of the people are at their best.
Yeah, some of the best music in the repertoire was written for specific performers, so that's wonderful.
True, and some of them, the people didn't want to play it, right? Like Tchaikovsky Concerto, Sibelius Concerto.
Yeah.
So it's funny because now they're staples of the repertoire. But it's sometimes, and like somebody would write a piece and they would say like, oh, they put they pull their heart and their soul in the piece, and then the person, that's not Elizabeth's case, because she writes something that's actually, it's very, very playable, everything she writes, but the tuba piece is pretty challenging. But the interpreter gets it and says, no way I'm playing that. Imagine, that must be so hard for the composer when they really want to do it. Sibelius is another story. It was some people say it was his revenge for not becoming a concert violinist, but we take that with a great grain of salt. Right. But I would say that Elizabeth writes more in the spirit of collaboration, like Haydn and Mozart a little bit more.
Well, we can hear her efforts firsthand on Sunday. This is January 29th, 7 p.m. at the Toledo Club, one of the chamber concerts from the Toledo Symphony Orchestra. Now, we've talked about the Elvis Costello piece, the Juliet Letters. We've been talking about Elizabeth Raum and her Relationships trio for brass. But there's also the Beethoven String Quartet No. 1. Mm-hmm. Now, Alain, do you want to stick around and talk about Beethoven, or do you have to head out?
Well, unfortunately, I have to run today, but I wanted to make sure that I had a little chat with you guys, tell hello to everybody, and talk about my colleague, Elizabeth. That's
wonderful. Well, thanks so much for calling in. We'll see you when you get back to Toledo.
Oh, you bet.
Take care, Alain.
Bye-bye.
Bye, guys. Bye.
Okay, now that Alain is gone, if you have anything to say it now. But let's talk about Beethoven.
Sure.
That's sort of, you talk about pages coming from an ivory tower. These are very early pages. I mean, his Opus 1 of string quartets, I don't know how old he was when he wrote this, but it had to have been fairly early in his career.
It's relatively early, but I mean, if you're thinking of the standards of Schubert or Mozart,
or Mendelssohn,
certainly Beethoven at this point. It's his first string quartet, but he wrote really all the first through the sixth quartets are all written kind of at the same time, and it is definitely published as the first one,
right?
And it was one of the earlier ones that he wrote, but it might not have been the first one he actually completed. But it's an amazing way to start a cycle, and has that sort of. A lot of times with Beethoven, you think of these really concise motives that are, used as building blocks, and this is very Beethovenian in that sense. Like you hear this motive that starts that quartet, and immediately you can just you can watch him like build this edifice out of it. It's really cool.
It's interesting, and then ideas that he would return to later in his composing career.
Yeah.
You see that in different composers. Like Beethoven is sort of an example unto himself, because you hear these things struggling to come to the fore, and they eventually are realized. Whereas you go back and listen to Mozart's First Symphony, and you hear Mozart. It's like sprung from the head of Zeus. They're able to write with the DNA that they're using later in life. But what is the connection with this concert? How does Beethoven fit in with this chamber program?
Well, it's really interesting because Beethoven was very much influenced in these early quartets by his teacher, Haydn. It was a kind of a tumultuous teacher-student relationship, but Haydn wrote an immense number of quartets and extraordinarily really kind of, gave the blueprint, the template for the form. And most of Beethoven's first six quartets really follow those forms. But there's something really interesting about the second movement of this quartet. It's much more operatic than the typical Haydn quartet slow movement. It has a really strong sense of drama and a strong sense of theater. And Beethoven inscribed on the sketches of that second movement that it was at Juliet's tomb. So you have this sense of, there's a restlessness, an anxiety that speaks to, all of the incredibly dramatic things that happen in those final scenes of Romeo and Juliet. And, it's not just this, gentle lament. You hear, sudden rises and falls and really loud things, and then breathless moments of silence, and then this shriek, and then it's a very, very
shriek from the violin, I take it.
Yes, that is my job. It is an intentional moment. But it's it is an incredible movement. But one thing it's fascinating because it's surrounded by these more conventional Haydn-esque movements, and it kind of really stands out as this extraordinary moment even among Beethoven's quartets.
I don't know if you have an answer for this, Merwin, but I for some reason I always think of the symphonies as kind of early, middle, late, just like we have the quartets early, middle, late. And the third symphony, of course, had a funeral march. What is the analog for this slow movement, the Juliet's tomb? Because I agree with everything that Merwin said, because I typically do, but the Haydn influences are really pretty notable, and there's kind of a darkness, I think, about this music that Beethoven went on to really explore and perfect, but he wasn't writing this as a teenager. He was a very sturdy composer. So where would an analog be, either by time or theme or mood?
I can't think of a symphonic one, but I do think the Appassionata Sonata. Appassionata for that slow movement. It's if you think about, if you imagine Beethoven's first symphony, which it's very Haydn-esque, but imagine the slow movement was from Appassionata Sonata. That's much, that you get the same sense of, I don't think it's jarring exactly, but it is, I think that sometimes when we think of youthfulness, we underestimate the turmoil that can be in youthfulness, unless you're trying to get your 5-year-old to school, as I did this morning. But parents of young kids are ruefully acknowledging that. But I think that with the lightness and the felicity and the charm of most of these movements, we get that turmoil, and I think Appassionata Sonata might be the best one I can think of for early Beethoven.
Well, as a student of Haydn, Haydn is the father of the string quartet. I think he had a huge influence on many composers, Beethoven included, in the form and the structure, but Haydn brought a lot of humor and a lot of lightness and fun and joy to his string quartets. And I think some of that rubbed off on the early Beethoven, and then it kind of was all downhill from there as far as heading into the emotional landscape that was not visited by composers like Haydn and Mozart, or may have been visited in a different way, much more 18th century way.
Beethoven's first quartet and his last quartet are both F major quartets. His last quartet is actually my absolute favorite piece of music in the world. And it does come full circle. You're right in the sense that Beethoven kind of delves and kind of into these extraordinary emotional depths, and the C-sharp minor quartet is one of the most profound and moving and just jarring compositions. But then that final quartet, the F major, it's he reconciles all of it, and the humor does come back at the very end. The last full piece he completed, I feel is just the perfect. I almost everything that you said, I totally agree with. But just for that one piece.
Which parts do you not agree with?
Well, that one piece, it's no longer that just kind of descending. The humor does come back. There is that Haydn-esque element just at the very end, which makes me love that last quartet more than any other.
Well, the idea of the String Quartet Number 1 by Beethoven put me in mind of a quiz subject, so I'm calling this the Opus 1 quiz. Here's the quiz that you were missing, Zach.
I wouldn't say I was missing it.
Hey, you're on a streak.
So what I'm going to
Yeah.
do,
Short-lived.
I'm going to say the name of a piece, and you tell me who the composer was, and I'll give you 3 choices of who the composer was.
Are they all
okay?
early compositions, all early opus numbers?
Are they
Yeah,
all just
it's
called
all
Opus 1?
the first published work by this
Oh, wow.
composer. Yeah.
Great.
There's a little music. This is obviously not
Fair.
Mozart's first.
It's obviously not fair.
Yes, this is
All
one of the
right.
piano sonatas.
Do you want this to be a we write down all our answers quiz?
Yeah, and then we'll come
Okay.
back. Okay.
Got it.
All right.
First one is a
So
piano
you mean
trio.
I have a chance?
Yes, you
Yeah,
do.
right.
Piano trio number 1 in E flat major, Opus 1, number 1. Was it Wolfgang Mozart? Was it Joseph Haydn? Or was it Ludwig van Beethoven? Piano trio number 1. Second question, piano quartet number 1 in C minor, Opus 1. This composer was 13 when they wrote it. Was it Felix Mendelssohn? Was it Carl Maria von Weber? Or was it Johannes Brahms? Piano trio in D major, Opus 1. Was it Wolfgang Mozart? Was it Wolfgang Korngold? Or was it Wolfgang Riem? R-I-H-M.
What was the signature?
The signature?
It was
The
Opus
key-
1?
Opus 1. What
Opus
was it?
1.
What
Yeah.
was the key?
D major.
All right.
You're not looking at your iPad, are you?
No,
Okay, good. Das Klagende Lied, or the Song of Lamentation, Opus 1. Was it Gustav Mahler? Was it Hugo Wolf? Or was it Richard Strauss? Number 5, String Quartet number 1 in B-flat major, Opus 1, number 1. It also has a subtitle, which I won't tell you yet because that'll give it away. Was it Wolfgang Mozart? Was it Joseph Haydn? Or was it Luigi Boccherini? Sinfonietta, Opus 1. Was it Leos Janáček? Was it Henryk Górický? Or was it Benjamin Britten? And for extra credit, which one of these was Wolfgang Mozart's Opus number 1? Is it the Minuet in G major, the Minuet in F major, or the Allegro in B flat? Now these are basically Opus 1, 2, and 3. You have to figure out which goes where. He was only 5 years old. Only 5 years old when he wrote this. I don't know if he was on his way to school or not. If his father, Leopold, had to put him in the car and get him to kindergarten, I don't know. It's possible. Anyway, let's go back.
Wow, what a tough quiz.
That was
Yeah.
This is just mean.
Yep, I'm having comps flashbacks.
I know, yeah. It's like you don't need to remember the composer, you need to figure out like the appropriate.
Opus.
this,
Yeah.
The number.
this was
This is music school,
Yeah,
ladies
there-
and gentlemen.
I didn't hear any Kirchhoff numbers. I needed that.
Yeah.
there was this sort of like weird pinching feeling in my stomach that I remember at particular exams. This was a
Yeah.
very
That's a very good point, though.
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
they were all opus numbers.
Yeah, it wasn't. We can't identify it without the right cataloging.
Right.
Yeah,
so we
but-
presume that none of these is Mozart except for the end.
I said
Yeah.
all Mozart all the time.
All Mozart all the time. That's what it says on your business card. Interesting.
Yeah.
I love Mozart.
Well, Zach figured it out. I should have said the extra credit
but also
question
that means no Schubert and
afterwards. Yeah.
no.
Okay.
Schubert did have opus numbers,
he did-
Number
he had
one.
the D's, but he also did publish enough of like his
Merwin, help us out.
string quartet D804 is opus 29.
Well, we don't have any Schubert on here
did
as
not have
options, so
Schubert. Okay.
never mind.
I can I can tell who the winner is going to be of the quiz. Okay, question number 1.
Not me, right?
Piano trio number 1. These piano trios and quartets, what have you, were really popular with young composers. Was that Mozart, Haydn, or Beethoven, number 1?
I said Beethoven.
And what did you say, Merwin?
I said Beethoven, but I think I'm wrong.
It's Beethoven.
I also said
What'd you say,
Beethoven.
Mickey?
I said
Okay,
Beethoven.
unanimous.
Mozart all the time, right?
Yeah.
Piano quartet number 1. Was it Felix Mendelssohn? Was it Carl Maria von Weber or Johannes Brahms? What'd you say, Zach?
Weber.
Weber? What'd you say?
Mendelssohn?
I went Mendelssohn.
Yeah, Mendelssohn. He was 13 years old when he wrote his first published piece. Piano Trio and and before that he wrote all those string symphonies, which were later discovered, I think, in the 20th century sometime. And they're remarkable, and he was quite young. Moving on, Piano Trio in D major. Was it Wolfgang Mozart, Wolfgang Korngold, or Wolfgang Rehm? A, B, or C? What do you say, Maroon?
Korngold for this.
Korngold? Anybody not choose Korngold?
I chose Rehm. No, I chose Korngold. Great.
Sure about that?
It was Wolfgang Korngold. At age 12, he wrote his Piano Trio in D major. I can't even remember age 12. Okay. Das klagende Lied, the Song of Lamentation. Was that Gustav Mahler? Was that Hugo Wolf, or was it Richard Strauss? Do I ring the bell again, yes or no? Yes. That is correct. It was Gustav Mahler. Everybody get that?
I did not.
I did not.
Seriously?
Okay. The Mahler bell. It doesn't work when I say the
Mahler bell
Mahler
is
bell.
misleading.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, it's Das Lieding.
I just put Mozart. I'm sorry.
Das Lieding. Okay. String Quartet number 1 in B-flat major, Opus 1, number 1, also called La Chasse, or The Hunt. Was that by Mozart, Haydn, or Boccherini? What do you say, Merwin?
I got it wrong. I said Boccherini.
I didn't until you told me it was called The Hunt.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
What do you
I said
think?
Boccherini, but that's wrong.
I'm going to say.
What did you say
I'm
Boccherini
switching to
too?
Haydn.
You're switching. Very good. Joseph Haydn's first string quartet was La Chasse. Okay, Sinfonietta, Opus 1. Was that Leo Janacek, Henryk Goritsky, or Benjamin Britten?
Britten, I think.
Britten? Everybody on the
Britten train.
page,
Yay.
the same
Yeah.
page
Choo-choo.
there? Okay. Janacek wrote a famous Sinfonietta,
Yeah, but it
that
wasn't
was
Opus 1.
much later. Benjamin Britten was 18 when he wrote his Sinfonietta. And for your extra credit, the first piece to be written and published by Wolfgang Mozart, was it Minuet in G major, Minuet in F major, or Allegro in B flat? A, B, or C?
I went to the Minuet in G.
I want to do F major.
I want to say F.
Yeah,
Okay, the
because that's the one I can
G's have it.
The G's have
Seriously?
The F's don't have it. That was Opus number 2.
What was
So Minuet in G was his first?
Minuet in G major was the first of 2 works published under his Opus 1, little piano works. You
yeah,
can
I
find
would-
them online.
Sure, I know him, but I would have put a lot into the center of the table on that one. In fact, I did.
Do we have a winner for that? I wasn't
I have no
keeping
idea.
track.
I feel like Mozart or
Mozart.
Mozart
yeah.
was the winner.
I think Alain won this one, right?
Yeah.
Yes, Alain, definitely. But usually we let our guests win, so we're going to say, Mickey, you won the quiz.
Thank you so much.
Congratulations. Well
Wonderful.
done. Well, it was that Boccherini that got you through. Yay.
Okay, well,
Yay!
there it is. You even got the right key, the right inflection going. You have that.
I literally have nothing else to do.
You have it like in your mind's ear, so to speak.
I think my voice is one of those, so it's just, it's musical memory.
So the String Quartet number 1 by Ludwig van Beethoven is on the program this Sunday at 7 p.m. at the Toledo Club. We'll also hear Elizabeth Raum's Relationships, a brass trio. And finally, String Quartet with voice, selections from the Juliet Letters of Elvis Costello, as sung by our guest, Mickey Emch. We look forward to that. This program is a production of WGTE Public Media in collaboration with our sponsor, the Toledo Symphony, with generous support from the Rita Barber Kern Foundation. You can download episodes as a podcast by going to our website at wgte.org/lab. You can also subscribe to us through your podcast app of choice, including Apple, Google, and Spotify podcasts. Don't forget to check out all the upcoming events at the Symphony by visiting their website at toledosymphony.com and their various social media outlets on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. You can find the TSO's streaming platform online at stream.artstoledo.com. You can reach the box office by phone, that is 419-246-8000. My thanks to Zach Vassar and Merwin Sue, also to Alain Trudel, who called in earlier, and of course to our very special guest, Mickey Emch. I'm Brett Cresswell. This has been Toledo Symphony Lab from FM 91.